you have a question or a couple questions?
Well, yeah, I've got some comments. I want them to,
Do you think it's a question that she would need to answer, or is it more like the city council? Okay. Fighting? Okay. Okay. I'll just let her know.
Oh my God. Maybe get rid of her. I pay extra for the script you got the holiday. I know.
100. Do you want to put stuff in the file quick?
from my room, from my
You can do it here.
Okay.
No, I think even I would use my desk.
Oh, sorry, Louise. Get in your lap. Just thought there'd be more chairs. You can't get on.
All right, thank you for attending the December 12th, 2022 Orono City Council meeting. On note, all council members are here and present today, As I said in my last council meeting, at the end of the meeting, this is Aaron's last meeting. He's retiring, and I'm going to let him run the meeting tonight, so we're going to switch spots, and Aaron's going to hold the gavel tonight. All members of the council are present. And we'll start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I think we've got some young people in the audience if they want to start it for us. Stand if you're able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to move the approval of the agenda down behind the Truth and Taxation public hearing, which is set for 6 p.m. So we will turn it over to Mr. Olson. He can go through our budget hearing, and then we will open it up to the public for comment.
Thank you, meeting runner Printup and Mayor and Council. This is the time of year where we have finally reached the conclusion of the budget process. In September, we adopted the preliminary budget and tax levy, if you remember, and tonight we would be adopting the final tax levy. So I will just jump on into my slideshow here. Is this not catching my voice? Okay, we'll get close to the mic. So what is the purpose of tonight's meeting? It's to discuss the 2023 budget and the 2023 tax levy. One disclaimer, and we've received some phone calls in the last few days, it is not to discuss property values. The time to do that would be during the open book meetings, which are in the spring, and they're conducted by Hennepin County. If there's someone in the audience that does still want to talk about their property tax VAT or their property value, you can contact our city assessor. It's Tom Kunick, and that's his phone number up there on the screen, or you can just call City Hall and ask to talk to him. But tonight is the budget and the tax levy. So what I like to do is I start out each year with the explanation of how property taxes are calculated, because I found that a lot of people don't necessarily understand it because it is confusing. I like to say all the math is simple, but it gets very confusing when you start applying the adding and subtracting and multiplying and dividing. So a few key terms are estimated market value. That's pretty simple. That's what the assessor does when he or she comes out to your house, looks around, decides what the value is. They visit every house, 1/5 of the homes, I believe, every year, and they come up with the estimated market value. Then another key term is the tax class rate, and that's if residential properties have a certain rate formula that the state is assigned to figure out their tax capacity. Commercial, industrial, agricultural all have different class rates, but we're 95% residential, so I focus on, for the purpose of this meeting, on residential properties. Tax capacity, you can see there's 2 of them. One is per property. Each property in the city has their tax capacity calculated based off that estimated market value. The tax class rate is applied to it, and each property has its tax capacity. The next line is tax capacity for the city, and that's if you take every property and add all those tax capacities together. That is the tax capacity for the whole city. The tax levy is an important piece, and that's set by the council each year. The council, throughout the budget process, we determine what amount of tax levy is needed to fund the budget. So that's passed. That's what we'll actually pass a little later tonight. And the tax capacity rate is another calculation that determines how much each property's individual property taxes are. And we'll just walk through that, but those are the key terms to remember. So Hennepin County Assessor, as I mentioned, comes up with the estimated market value of each property in the city. Mentioned the tax class rate for residential properties there. we take the first 1%, or we take 1% of the first 500,000 of a property's value and 1.25% of any value over $500,000. So estimated market value times that tax rate equals a property's tax capacity. The tax capacity rate, which is an important number for tonight, comes from the property tax levy that the council will set later tonight, divided by the city's total tax capacity, results in a percentage that's applied to each individual property's tax capacity. And that's where your city taxes, how your city taxes are calculated. So the city passed the tax levy, or the tax levy being presented tonight is $8,387,000. The city's total tax capacity is $50,624,000, which means we would have a tax capacity rate, if the budget is approved as is, of 16.57%. That 16.57% is actually 0.25 percentage points lower than last year's tax capacity rate. So now we have our rate, so now we will take each individual's tax capacity times that rate, and that will be the city's city share of the tax on your tax statements. So this is a property that we've used an example of for probably 10 years running now. We've used the same property. It's now worth $1,225,000. 1% of the first 500,000 equals 5,000. 1.25% of the remaining 725,000 equals the 9,062.50, for a total tax capacity of that property of $14,062.50. Multiply it by that tax capacity rate of 16.57%, and you come up with an amount of $2,330.16. And just to show the audience and the council that this is actually the way it works, here's that actual tax statement that would have been received from the county, and you can see the number circled there is $2,329.81. I believe there's, 30 cents of rounding is the only difference there, but that's how it works. That's how we calculate the taxes on any property in the city. I would like to point out that while our property tax is going up this year, we still only represent 17.8% of any individual property's tax bill. I should clarify, this is Orono School District. Depending on which school district you're in, the percentage might be a little different. But we are 17.8% of a property in the Orono School District's tax bill. I like to show this slide because there's some numbers that were filled in that aren't filled in anymore, but what that was is the county, across the state, the county is 31% of an average tax bill. Cities are 26% of a tax bill, and the green line there was school districts, and they're about 30% of the tax bill. So across the state of Minnesota, cities or counties and school districts make up a majority of all tax bills that people receive. To the right is what how it works out in the city of Orono, and you can actually see the county's about 38%, the school's 39%, and the city is 16%. It's rounded there, and then state and other add up to 7% because it won't come to 100 without including them in, but that's the way it was, and that's as of 2022, Hennepin County website in 2022. So with that behind us, we can talk about our specific tax levy, and the 2023 tax levy, as you can see, is increasing the middle section there from $6,944,776. It's increasing to $8,387,000, which is an increase of 20.77%. That top line there talks about the tax capacity of the city, and you can see that's actually increasing 22.6%. And the bottom half of the screen talks about the tax rates for each section of our levy. Our levy is made up of the general fund, a building fund, pavement management, parks, community investment, and some debt service funds there. So You can see the Geo Improvement 2016 is going to 0% this year because those bonds have been paid off. But the end result is a tax capacity rate of 16.57%, which, as I mentioned, is 0.25 percentage points lower than the previous years. I'd like to show this slide each time we talk taxes too. This is our city and our surrounding cities' tax rates, and you can see Orono remains, we're fourth lowest in the county based on estimated taxes being approved, you know, by cities across the county in this week and next. So we're fourth lowest, but there we are at 16 point, why am I blanking? Anyway, just over 16.5%. We are lower than the Hennepin County average there in red, and we're certainly lower than most of our surrounding cities. Everyone on this chart, I think if I had Tonka Bay on there, they are fractions below us, but on the graph we would look exactly the same. So I'd like to show that to put a little perspective on our taxes compared to our surrounding cities. So what makes up, okay, it is 2022 tax levy, I missed one. That's actually a completely wrong slide. That slide did not get updated. That should be 8 million down at the bottom. I would just go back there. This doesn't give you the dollar amounts, but it gives you the percentages that are made up. A little later on, I do have a copy of the resolution that will show the actual dollar amounts so you can see them. So what would happen with our tax of $8 million on an average home? Well, if there's no change in the value of your home, you would actually see a slight decrease, about 1.5% on the city portion. Obviously, some homes didn't change in value, some homes increased in value, and some homes decreased in value, and you would, you know, your actual tax would depend on what your home did compared to the other homes in the city. So you can see a 5% increase in value. The increase would range from $16.62 at the $250,000 priced home, and at the $2 million home at the top end or the far right of the scale, you would see an increase of about $150 in the city tax. So that's how that works, and I left off the 5% decrease because that would just show a small decrease. And if someone's here tonight to talk about their taxes, it's not because they're getting a decrease in the city portion, so I left that one out. So what's driving our budget this year? Inflation is driving our budget, and well, this is by department, but you can see that there are some departments increasing significantly. I want to go halfway down to police, not to pick on them, but the police department budget is increasing $448,000 or 8.7%, and pretty much that is due to wages, the police department wages. It was a union year, and police wages are going up 8 to 9%, and a large portion of the police budget is wages, so you see that kind of increase, and that's due to the union contracts. Fire protection services, I have to mention that one because that's increasing 57% to $262,000. Part of that is a $88,000 increase that we would be paying to Long Lake, and then part of that is we did hire a fire chief for our eventual Orono Fire Department, and so that is being budgeted beginning in 2023, and we did not have a fire chief position last year, so that does equate to an increase in the budget. The other bigger increases are down there on parks are increasing 22%. That is mostly the addition of an additional maintenance worker, and now we are fully staffed for our projections of what we need to have for parks and keep our parks clean and mowed and picked up and all the stuff that goes with maintaining a proper park system. And then the brush site, you can see, is increasing a large percentage, 54%, but it's really $15,000, and that has to do with, we used to have all the brush chopped up at no charge. Now we have to pay for it just like anything else, and so that's just, that increase is just to pay for costs associated when residents drop trees or brush off at the site. It is chipped up by a third-party vendor, and we have to pay them. So overall, the bottom line, the general fund budget is increasing $1 million, or just over 10%. So it is one of the bigger increases, but as you'll see on the next slide, a lot of that increase has to do with the wages and benefits. So that very first line item, personnel services, $734,000 in personnel services is the increase. That's 11%. Now, some of that would be adding a new fire chief, adding one more park maintenance worker that wasn't budgeted a year ago, but good, almost $500,000 of that increase is due to increases in wage and benefits in the union contracts and the non-union employees. Professional services increasing $102,000. A big chunk of that is, like I said earlier, Long Lake Fire, $88,000, and then Hennepin County Assessing was increasing $40,000. So the other professional services lines actually decreased slightly. Other expenses, these titles are designated by the state. Other expenses includes things like fuel and electricity and natural gas. All of those things are going up fast also, as we are probably all aware of. And so that budget line item is increasing 20%. It's $100,000, but those expenses listed there are mostly out of our control. We have to keep the lights on. And those are the increases. Said it adds up to $1 million, or just right around 10%. So, as I promised, here's a resolution that they're adopting the tax levy. You can see the amounts: $5,641,000 for the general fund. The general fund is the main operating fund of the city. Pays for police protection, fire protection, plowing the streets, all of those. When you think of the bread and butter parts of government, that comes out of the general fund. The building fund, $375,000. That's we go back and forth between the building fund and the facilities fund. It's the same fund. It's to fund improvements in city building infrastructure. The pavement management fund has an annual levy now of $1 million. A few years back, when we had zero, probably 6 or 7 years back, we had zero budgeted for pavement management, and our roads really showed it. The council has made it a priority to have a fully funded road program, and that $1 million levy was with the amount that was identified at that time as being needed for fully funding that road program. The parks levy is to keep maintaining infrastructure in our parks. That's going to the park fund. It does not go into the general fund. It's the park fund, and it's used to do capital type improvements in parks. Community investment, $219,000. That's a new levy this year, and that's the community investment fund is a fund that's for projects that are of importance to the whole community, that don't really have other funding sources. A good example of that is when the 112 turn back to the county gets completed. We still have some stuff to do between Willow and the end of town, or actually it's Brown and the end of town, isn't it? So the community investment fund is paying for that. And then the last two items are debt service on outstanding bonds, and it adds up to $8,387,000. So that's the tax levy, and that's a highlight of what it's being used to fund. If you look on the website or in the packet for tonight's meeting, you can see much more detailed information. But if we started going into the line item details, we might be here. We would not be leaving here today. It would be tomorrow. So this is a very high level view of it. This is the general fund budget. The total revenue budget is $10,993,000, with taxes supporting $5.664 million of the general fund. Other line items in there: licenses and permits, charges for services. Those are our contract services with Spring Park, Minnetonka Beach, and Mound for police, and we also have contract services with Spring Park for public works, and then other things that we charge people for. It's not all other cities, but anytime someone comes in and it's an additional charge, it goes into charges for services. Interest income, this one's actually increasing significantly this year, but if you follow the news, you know, a year ago, 1.5% might have been a good interest rate for me to invest our city funds in, and now I can get 4%, so it makes sense that that one would be increased too. Recreation fees are the golf course at $377,000, and miscellaneous is just a bunch of really miscellaneous things. When we sell a piece of equipment, like a squad car that was paid for out of the general fund, the sale of that squad ends up in miscellaneous, so that would account for about half of the revenue in miscellaneous, would just be the turning over of squads. Appropriated expenditures are the second half of the page. Whoops. General government, $1.62 million, and that would be administration, public administration, finance, elections, assessing, and things like that. Public safety is fire and police, everyone understands that, but it's also the planning and zoning department, because building codes fall under public safety. So that 6.8 million also includes the zoning, the planning department. Street maintenance, everyone knows what that is. Potholes, plowing. Parks and recreation are, the golf course is included in there at the moment. That would be, about $360,000 of that would be golf course. Others are paid park programs, mowing, garbage service, irrigation, whatever else we do in our parks to keep them running. Reimbursable expenses, those are fees that people, oftentimes when people get a variance, we need to have engineering legal services conducted as part of that variance. We pass those through. That would be a reimbursable expenditure. We also have some 119 time for the police, where they do, they can do private security for people, and then we charge them. We also participate in a Towards Zero Death with the state of Minnesota. It's a grant program, so the fees associated with Towards Zero Death end up in reimbursable expenses because they will be funded as a grant. So the items in that $361,000 are refunded in some way, whether it's by an applicant having to do with a variance or someone hiring our police officers to provide security. We recover that. And capital outlay, those are, in the general fund, the only capital outlay is squad cars, police related stuff, so squad cars or other equipment that would reach the capital threshold. And transfers to other funds are basically, that's the improvement equipment outlay fund where that transfer is going. And they all add up to $10,993,000. Other budgets being adopted tonight are our special revenue funds. One is the park fund. You can see the tax levy there, and then park dedication fees of $11,000. Those are collected when a lot is subdivided. So sometimes, some years we have none. We generally budget about two lots subdivided in a year. Then if a big subdivision comes in, that's 5, 10, 15 homes. That number becomes much bigger, but we don't try to guess when we will have a big subdivision, because it would most likely be a losing game. And drug felony forfeiture, these are DWI and drug forfeitures. So if someone, most of them turn out to be DWI, the city has the right under certain circumstances to seize a vehicle, and then those vehicles are generally sold, sometimes back to the owner, sometimes, through an auction to a new owner. But so we budget that. And TIF, that has to do with the Orono Woods Senior Building just down there on the border with Long Lake, and that one has a tax levy there of $100,000. That's why we budget that one. So, and the last budget, and one budgets, and it's something that people in this room may be very interested in. There are enterprise funds, water, sewer, recycling, stormwater, and cable. These funds are designed to be operated like a business, and they are supposed to be self-sustaining, and they do not rely on any tax levy, any general tax levy to fund these. And that's the way it, you know, under best practices of the GFOA, that's the way it is. So those estimated revenues, charges for service, they're big numbers there, but I think what everyone in this room wants to know is that would be with water rates increasing by 2%, sewer increasing by 2%, stormwater increasing by 2%, and recycling increasing by 4%. Now, a couple years back, 3 years back, we had some significant increases in water and sewer and stormwater rates, and if the people who are aware of that remember, going into the future, we had predicted that we would have some sustainable, certainly less steep increases, and last year we had 0% increases in water, sewer, and stormwater, and this year we're going to the more, you know, accurate sort of 2%, and we're thinking 2% going off into the future will be adequate for these funds. Recycling increases 4%, but that's simply passing on. We contract with Waste Management for curbside recycling. Their fees are going up 4%, so we're increasing our fees 4%. And cable is funded by a fee on the people who have cable. They pay a franchise fee, and that comes to the city. So that is not taxed or charged on utility bills. It just is actually charged on people's cable bill if they have TV. It's not charged on internet. So, the expenditures, I think if you do the math, you will see that each of those funds will operate at a small profit this year, and that's the way we want it. The profit is needed to pay for infrastructure needs in the future. As you've heard us say many times, these funds, our fee schedule, or fee rates, our rates on these funds are designed to be able to cover infrastructure needs without having to resort to bond sales or special assessments. And that seems to be working. So there are a couple other budget items other budget matters. We have the capital improvement plan that will be approved tonight. We have the fee schedule that will be approved tonight. We touched on that with the fees of the utility funds. And then we have a resolution will be passed later on tonight about non-union compensation. But all of those things impact the budget, and all of those things are prepared, and the budget is prepared all in conjunction so that they all agree. As far as the CIP, two things I want to highlight here. The CIP is a planning document only. We use it to try to anticipate capital needs for the utility funds, to go into setting the rates. We use it to project what road costs will be, so we know what our pavement management plan needs to include, and equipment. A dump truck is expensive. You're talking over $100,000 by the time you buy a dump truck and throw a plow on it. It's $100,000. So we've identified all of our major capital items, and they are all on a replacement schedule that's in the CIP, and that's available. The CIP is available in the packet for tonight. And the second bullet point there, it does not authorize any expenditures. This has come up a few times. Yes, it's a planning document. We can pass it, we will use it, but when we decide we're going out to buy that dump truck, the council will make that decision at the time it's purchased. Just because the CIP is approved tonight does not mean anything in there is going to happen on its own without council approval. It will go back to the council. So that's all I have to say about that. If you look at it, there are some funds, I guess, there that you might see red numbers or negative numbers in the future. Once again, we're not approving any expenditures. If we don't find ways to fund those negative amounts, those projects wouldn't happen. So it's a very important document, but it's not a set in stone kind of document that obligates the city to spend money that it doesn't have. The other one I want to talk about is the fee schedule, and I just want to give a really quick by group on the fee schedule is on the website also. But these are the fees that are increasing, and maybe the biggest one on this page is the first one, application fees for a variance or other type zoning fees are increasing from $325 to $375 or $50. And that's based on a analysis of time spent and expenditures relating to just processing an application. The amount spent processing it is over 500,000, so we're not completely covering it at this point, but we can work into that. We don't have to increase that all in 1 year. Minimum other permits. 500. Oh, 500. Thank you.
A little different number.
It is a bit different number. $500. The minimum cost permits. There's a lot of permits that cost $50. We're just increasing them 10% to $55 to sort of cover those costs of labor that we were talking about of 8 to 9%. Other zoning permits that were more than 50 is same deal. And then the plan re-review fee is a new fee, and it's based on the building official recommendation. What happens oftentimes, someone comes in for a building permit, they have a fee that they need to have reviewed, and there's a charge according to the plan being reviewed. Some people are very good. They have one plan, it's reviewed, there's some changes recommended, they come back, they've made the changes and everything's good. Sometimes that same plan comes back 5, 6, 7 times and takes a lot of staff time. So this re-review fee is aimed not at the average person who comes in and there's some minor changes. Okay, yep, you made your changes, everything's good. It's aimed at the people who come back multiple times and cost a lot of staff time and maybe even legal and engineering at that point. So that's what the aim is, not the person who does it right, but the people who keep coming back and back and back. Some other fees and the license fee and miscellaneous. The recommendation is to increase a canoe rack rental fee from $40 to $45, and a rental license, which is the home rental license, increasing that to $120 from $100, just to make it divisible by 12 easily. That was a request of our clerk. Police administration, these are some fees that are associated with the police department. The chief is recommending we increase the cost of false alarm fees for the 2nd through 5th false alarm in increments of 100. So the first one is always free. People, they have a false alarm with their security system. The first one is free, but once again, just like those re-review fees, some people never fix their false alarm, so the second one's 100, the third one is 200, the fourth one 300, and we'll go up to 500. The 5th is 500, and 6th, 7th, 8th still at 500. But you would be surprised. It's actually decreased, but you would be surprised how many people would get up to 5 and 6 false alarms. And that's the purpose of those fees, is we don't want to waste public safety efforts going to an alarm that's not real. Same thing with the false fire alarms. The second alarm is $75. The chief was indicating that we should just increase that to 100, and then the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth already incremented in 100, so that makes sense. The 119 rate, touched on that earlier, increasing from 125 to 140. That's just covering our expenses of providing security to people who want to pay for it. So utility rates, we covered this a little bit ago. 2% on the rates, that's the big item here. The top item there, municipal connection permit. We changed that from 50 to 150, but that includes your first inspection. So you're paying $50 for the permit, and the inspection's $100. And then the inspection fee that was included in the fee schedule previously has been renamed to additional inspection. And once again, this is aimed at catching the people who are collecting more from the people who schedule an inspection. We send our utility guy out there and whoops, they don't show up, so we can't do it. They schedule an inspection, our utility guy goes out there and, oh, well, we filled in the line. Well, we can't inspect a utility line that's already covered in the dirt, so we have to come back again. So it's trying to collect our utility workers' time when because no fault of her own and because the person asking for the inspection didn't do what they were supposed to do. We're trying to recover some costs so that the general citizen doesn't have to pay for that. Sewer projects, these are connection fees for people who maybe opted out of a sewer project when it went into their neighborhood 10 or 15 years ago. And as part of that, they didn't pay an assessment or they didn't pay at the time. So if the assessment had a 4% interest rate on it, we increased the connection fee 4%, just as a fairness issue for the people who said, oh, I'll pay right away. And they paid their connection or their assessment up front, and now someone comes in 15 years later and they pay the same connection fee. So that's what that one's about. And the other one here is park fees. Not a ton changing here. Golf course fees, we're changing the age of a junior to 10 instead of 12. And the senior rate would begin at 62 instead of 60. And this is just to keep in line with surrounding golf courses of, similar size and maybe even city. Season passes, non-resident family rates increasing from $665 to $700. It's only the non-resident, the other season passes are staying the same. But one other change, passes will no longer be accepted for league play. The Lurton Park, there's been some parking concerns out there, and that's been a common complaint making it back to city about people not having permits. When Lurton Park was established, there was an emphasis on education and not fining people. Now I think this year we will be using the administrative fine, which is $60 for people who probably have been warned but still don't get the pass. They will receive an administrative fee of $60. And the passes themselves are increasing. This is based on the Parks Commission recommendation from $25 to $40 for residents and from $40 to $55 for non-residents. And Summit Beach, this reflects the one earlier about canoe or rack rental increasing from $40 to $45. And then new this year, that bottom one, a clubhouse rental fee of $40 per hour is being added. This would be for closed season, so not during the golf season, but we have had inquiries about, well, can't I rent out the clubhouse for a birthday party? And so we thought, well, let's have a fee, allow people to do that and see where it goes. And the $40 really is designed to cover the person working and the cleanup costs. We're not really making any money on it, but it's a way to make the park used more often than just in the summer for golf. It will hopefully start bringing people into our park in the winter. And that, in a nutshell, or 35 minutes, is a very high level of the tax levy and the budget and the other items being asked to be approved tonight. And by law, we have to have a public hearing, so ready for the public hearing.
Yeah, I think, is there any questions that council may have? If not, we'll jump into the public hearing, and if anybody has any questions to the truth in taxation, if you'll approach and state your name and address, come on up. And I don't see anybody for the truth in taxation public hearing, so I'll close the hearing. Oh,
What does that mean? Questions about the taxation, what does that mean?
if you have any questions about the presentation and all the budget items that were talked about. Yeah, come on up, state your name and address.
Ron Lewis, 2190 Shadywood Road. I think it's admirable that Orono is substantially below most of the other communities around here with what Ron presented here. I think there was only one that was lower. But when I got my proposed property taxes for 2023, it reflected something quite different. So I guess what I'm trying to find out is if you've not done anything to your home in 15 to 20 years, it's just inflation, increased inflation. city of Orono, I'm not talking about Hennepin County, for just Orono, be substantially, when I substantially, I mean 50% above and beyond the norm. How can that happen?
Well, our tax rate has been the same for about 7 years. So if the value of your house has gone up, then that same tax rate would be applied against the value of the increase in value of the house. So that's why it would go up. But the tax rate itself has not changed. In fact, it went down from last year. But if the value went up, it's still being applied. So if your house went from, just say around $1 million, then it went to $1.4 million, instead of that same 0.167 being charged at $1 million, it'd be 0.167 times the $1.4 million.
Well, that I understand. I mean, I don't understand that pretty well, but I did some numbers here because I only have the numbers for me to look at. I don't have anybody else in the community, but I just wanted to reflect on a few numbers. So I took my Hennepin County property taxes for 4 years. And then I took my city of Orono portion of that for 4 years, figured out the increase in percentage, and so forth. And if I took my Hennepin County total taxes for 4 years, 2020 through 2023, and total those that came up to the 5.75% per year, okay, 23%. 4 years, 23%. If I look at just the Orono portion of that, the Orono portion was 50.2%, or 12.5% a year. Okay, more than double the Hennepin County. So then I did another thing. I said, okay, I'll look at the year over year for the city and the total for those 4 years. And I looked at that and I said, okay, for the year 2020, the year over year total was 4.4% total taxes, total property taxes. 2021, 8.5, 2022, 1.2, and proposed for 2023, 12%. Okay? So then I thought, well, the only basis I could compare this to is to take Orono and do the same thing. So I took Orono and I said, okay, for 2020, my increase was 5.9 versus a 4.4 for Hennepin County. In the ballpark anyway, but still 34% higher. For 2021, total year over year was 8.5%, and City of Orono was 17.4. 104% increase over the Hennepin County total. I did it for 2022. Total year over year. Increase was 1.2% for total property taxes. Orono was 2.3, or a total of, percentage-wise, 92% higher. And lastly, I did it for 2023. In total year over year, 12% for Hennepin County, 24.9% for Orono, 109% increase. Okay. Now, I didn't know if there was any, well, the other thing I did is, okay, I looked at the Orono school system. And I said, okay, I'm gonna take the taxes for the school district and look at that, and see how well they're managing their budget. For 2020, read this. The school was 6.1%. Let me put my glasses on here. Please bear with me here. The increase in the school taxes was 6.1%. Not the increase, the amount was 6.1% in 2020. In 2021, it was 4.7%, pretty much in line with inflation, maybe a little bit higher. 2022, it was minus 1.7%. And for 2023, it's 0.3%. So I concluded from that the schools are doing a pretty good job of managing the budgets and not getting massive increases like the overall city is here. So how do we account for these huge increases in property tax?
I guess there's a couple of things. First, you're comparing apples to oranges. The school is very different from a city. Hennepin County is...
I just threw that in to see how well they were managing their budget.
Well, that's all relative. You can borrow money and not spend a budget, and you'd never know it. I mean, they could go borrow $400 million and only spend a little bit more money, but you wouldn't know that they borrowed money. So there's a lot of different ways that they can play the games on the budget. Hennepin County is a very different animal. They do all sorts of different things over there. And as a city, we are confined to just a few things. One of our main issues that we had a long time ago that we talked about was making sure our tax rate did not go up. So if you look at your tax value of your tax statement and you multiply it by the tax rate that's been the same basically for the next 6 years, that's how you're gonna get your taxes for what you're paying Orono, okay? So it all depends on what the value of your house has done. If your house went up 40%, well then your taxes most likely are gonna probably go up 40% too. Just like our costs with all of our inflation, our wages and all that kind of stuff went up as well. But just to put it in a little perspective from an Orono, and I'm glad I appreciate that you recognize that we are the lowest around here. Now Tonka Bay, who's got 1,000 people, they might be just a hair below us. But there's a few things you gotta remember here, and this is gonna be more of a perspective thing. In our budget, we've got $1 million in roads. So when we come and do your roads, or anybody in here that's from Orono, we don't send you a bill. We don't tell you we're gonna send you a bill because it's in our budget, so we can just go get them done. All of our water and our sewer is built in to get taken care of also. So when things break, or we're redoing roads and then we gotta redo everything underneath at the same time so we don't do it twice, that's in our budget. We don't come and bill you for that as well. Now you can go look at, as an example, Long Lake. There was just an article just in the Laker Pioneer paper about Long Lake. In one of the highest revenue years, because we had a drought, so everybody's using their water, and you use more water, you're gonna get charged for it, right? They're bleeding red ink, okay? What happens when we have a wet year and they don't get any revenue? They're gonna be underwater. They also charge you every time they wanna build a road or they wanna do water and sewer. You get a bill for it. Look at Minnetonka Beach. They put no money aside for their roads or their infrastructure. In fact, they had to go to the legislature a couple of years ago because their water tower failed. They had no money. In fact, they were coming to us to say, could you please supply us water? We don't know what to do. The legislature, through their bonding bill, gave them a couple $1 million to help them build a new water tower because they had no money. They don't set anything aside. We've had people in here from Minnetrista that say the roads by Burl Oak, they're so bad you can't hardly even drive on it. Half the roads are gravel. We already have all the roads in our budget. We get them done before they get bad. Anybody in here who's got a road they can't drive on, go drive by Burl Oaks. You'll see what I'm talking about. Go to Mound. They don't have any money for infrastructure. They have to go bond for roads. And by the way, they have boiling water issues all the time because they got a major water problem. We don't have any of those. It's all budgeted and we take care of the stuff up front. In fact, Mound is gonna have to go to the legislature because they're gonna probably need about $20 million to fix their water problem because they don't put any money aside and they can't afford to borrow it. So they got a whole bunch of different issues. So that's just a little bit and so with all the stuff that we have already funded.
How does that reflect on these increases I just went through?
Hey, Ron. How you doing, Ron?
Good.
So what I heard you say is in 22, you had a 2.3% increase, and in 23, the projected is at 24.9%?
Yep.
And you're wondering if we didn't make any increases to our mill rate, then how did my rate go up 24.9%? Is that your question?
I've not done a thing in my house in 18 years.
Right.
Nothing's been added, no permits.
Well, that's a
So
Hennepin
the
County
only
issue.
So the only way for your taxes to increase by 24.9% year over year and to the Orono's portion of that, the only way for that to happen is that the Hennepin County assessor increased your value by that same amount. Because the mill rate that we're charging Orono residents is virtually unchanged. It went down a little bit. So if your house was assessed, Ron, last year at $1 million, and the assessor didn't change your value going into 2023, then your taxes would have gone down the portion to the city of Orono. And that's what we're talking about. So your assessment from Hennepin County must have gone up about 25%.
I didn't, Matt, I didn't look at the assessments at all.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's exactly where it's coming from.
Your dollars, for
Right.
the city of Orono, for the city of.
It's directly tied to your assessment, and that's what Hennepin County did. So if you were at $1 million last year, you would show $1,240,000 this year.
And we
And
had,
you're only getting charged on the incremental change.
and we had them in here, and what you're saying was a specific complaint I had, because I have parents, haven't done anything to their house, but they live on the lake, and so it's went up astronomically, right? They've done, I joke, they've done things that probably deterred the value of it, right? But, the shag carpeting and whatnot, but they, that was, I think you brought it up, that in our area, we saw not rate, but values go up 24%, nothing has changed, some even higher, while in Minneapolis, it was 8%. So that was across this whole area, there was astronomical raises, and to your point, you may have not done anything to your house that would make
But
that.
it doesn't matter. Hennepin County on the average was 20% across the entire state for Hennepin County.
And what Victoria is referring to about having Hennepin County in here, that was our Hennepin County commissioner that was in here, and yeah, Matt,
We had the assessing crew in here too.
and the assessing crew. So Hennepin County heard loud and clear from the city of Orono, and I imagine other western Hennepin County cities.
But that's the issue, that all the big sales that have happened.
You can always challenge your assessed value though through the county. I've done it at various times, but it's about the assessed value to the mill rate and multiplier. That's the big thing, and the problem is the state somewhat set it up. We had shutdowns, we had a limited inventory of real estate, so they basically shot up real estate values because you had a limited inventory on real estate. And that brought values up to very high levels, but a lot of that was done with the government's intervention of doing shutdowns and so forth. And I talked to the assessor too myself, and I said, what happens next year when real estate values are down by 20%? Because I think that's what we're looking at next year. And I said, are you gonna drop rates then by 20?
Absolutely.
I said, because they should, because I said, these values are overblown. I think they're ridiculous too, but
If you go find your statement, or you pull it up on the Hennepin County website, you'll see that your value increased 25%.
I don't think I'm speaking just for me, right? Are there other people that have the same problem?
yeah.
So what would happen if the values drop by 20%? You're still budgeting an almost $50 million increase, and that's gonna continue to go up. So your mill rate is gonna have to increase in order to.
Well, we've kept it for 8 years, so.
Yeah, we're doing our best to hold it, but the thing is, you've got inflationary pressure, so it makes it a lot more difficult today.
But you still have, if you were in Long Lake, if you were in Minnetrista, if you're in Mound, you'd be paying 20 to 40% more than you're paying in Orono. We are you're getting the best value for government in this city, on top of having everything funded on top of it, because they're getting additional bills in those cities on top of paying 20 to 40% more.
And we paid down a lot of debt, and that's
So
important.
here's another thing I'll throw on the table here, that I've unfortunately grown to be a senior citizen over the past.
See, fortunately, you've grown to be a senior citizen.
Just like everybody else. I've been retired for 8 years now, and my income's nowhere near what it was. And my property taxes here are 25% of my income. And just for property taxes.
Mhm.
So, it seems to me there should be either at the Orono level or at the Hennepin County level or even the state level, a super senior category of increases in property taxes.
Yeah.
Because my income's going nowhere, my property taxes are going like this, and you know that.
You know what, I think if there's ever an opportunity right now, call your legislator, the state's got $17 billion
Right.
surplus, the state does, right now. Call your legislator, if there's a time to have a conversation about helping things out along any of those kind of lines, this would be your day to do it, but you gotta call your legislature. Your legislator, that's Andrew Myers. And he's our, just elected legislator here. Andrew Myers, yep.
And I did talk to him last week, and he reminded us of that, when, just going back to what was said, Ron, is we had the county commissioner and talking about our assessments. The suburbs are getting completely taken advantage of their increases over the city. So we're seeing, we saw in the suburbs, 25% was the average. So your numbers that you said were consistent with the average, Ron. Some people even went up higher than that in the suburb, and then as you get closer to the city, then they didn't see those same growths. But I do want to answer another question is, what happens when it goes down 20%? What happens to our mill rate? Do we keep that flat? And that's going to be a real challenge, because included in what we're doing this year is we're increasing our pavement fund so that we're not doing special assessments when we redo the roads. So that's included in your tax bill now. Some cities don't do that, and then they'll charge you $15,000 when they put a new street in front of you, or sidewalk, or curb and gutter. But we've been building that in over the last few years, and it's grown to be $1 million, and that's how we proportion the work that we do. We've added to our parks this year. We paid off some debt, but we added new debt too with our public works facility. And so when we go, we're gonna have the hard decision. If the property values go down, we're gonna either have to make some cuts of what we're budgeting for, like our roads and all those things, or we'll have to increase the rate. But we haven't increased the rate, and we've been working hard to maintain that. And for now, the citizens of Orono are getting more services for their money over the previous year. So it's not just going to nowhere.
And the good news is, because we budgeted it so well, we at least have options if for some reason, like the property values went down, we have options to be able to look at things where if people have, other cities have nothing budgeted for any infrastructure, they got a whole nother problem.
I do get all of that. I'm good at math. Bottom line is, I'm still paying a significant amount more money, 25% more. And I say, why? What am I getting for it? Maybe we ought to be cutting back on projects now as opposed to in the future. That's the only way you can do it though. You cut back on projects.
Well, everybody, when their water main breaks, wants to make sure they have water. When they got a police emergency, they want to make sure the police show up. They want the
Priority projects
I
and
know.
lower priority projects. You gotta prioritize.
Well, hopefully we don't have a problem to have to deal with that, but I understand your issue. I would call Andrew Myers, he's your state representative. They got $17 billion, which they've never had anything like that in the history of Minnesota. And I think they're gonna be spending some money this summer on a bonding bill, and that'd be a good time to talk to Andrew about that kind of conversation, about the senior conversation.
Yeah, thank you all for your time, I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you. Anybody else for the taxation public hearing? Then I'll move and entertain, I'll close the public hearing, and then anybody like to make some motions? I don't know if we need one or.
Oh, we can do it all in one. It's under council action requested. So I'll make a motion to approve the 2023 property tax levy, the 2023 general fund budget, the 2023 special revenue fund budget, the 2023 enterprise fund budget, the 2023 capital improvement fund, and the 2023 fee schedule.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
And then, actually, the gentleman that asked the question, if values were to go down X amount of percent or whatever, just kind of a side note. And I just thought of it, Denny and I remember when we, a couple of times, did an exercise of trying to find a different assessor than Hennepin County. And that's a whole story and almost debacle altogether, because it proved too that the Hennepin County government has such a hold on our values, and how they do it, that if they don't agree, if we were to go private, if they didn't agree, they could say, okay, we're throwing that out and we're gonna do it ourselves and charge you for it anyway. So it's interesting. Plus the private assessors, they really don't exist around here.
I was gonna say, they're getting fewer and fewer that they're even
Yeah.
putting.
So just a little reflection that we've gone through a lot of different scenarios to try to push those things down, but all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 5-0.
Jackie.
And that brings us to the approval of the agenda. Would anybody like to take a stab at the consent agenda?
I have a question. Can we take item 6 off the consent agenda so I can understand that process and then talk about it?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You take number 10 off?
Yes.
Any others?
Any others to be removed or any thoughts on that? Okay.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda item as is, items 2 through 14, removing item number 6 and item number 10 as requested.
And if there's any other removals, I don't see any hands going up.
I think some people are wondering, are you gonna list the items?
Why don't you just want to go through them?
Yeah.
Okay,
So on consent would be agenda item 2, City Council meeting minutes of November 28th, 2022. Item 3, claims and bills. 4, approval of rental licenses. 5, approval of kennel license. Putting 6 back onto the regular agenda. Consenting number 7, cost of living adjustments for non-union employees. Number 8, public works facility, special inspection and construction testing contract. Number 9, LA 2254, 3275 Carmen Road variance. Adding 10 back to the regular agenda. Number 11, assignment of development agreement, Crystal Bay Business Center. Number 12, approval to accept donation. Number 13, approval to accept resignation, Tim Wessels. Number 14, adopt resolution of appreciation to, oh, this feels awkward. That was a set. To Councilmember Aaron Brennan. And is everybody okay with that? Do I hear a motion to accept?
14 was a good one.
Good one to leave on there.
So I'll second that.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, we, moving on, do we want to start with, yeah, Richard, Richard has some words to add before we get into it.
I don't know if everybody's aware, but we lost a wonderful member of our community about a week ago. Her name is Julie Kroll. She's Jeff's wife, very young lady who's been really involved in the community. Jeff has got about almost 20 years on Long Lake Fire. He's a good man. And if anybody knows Jeff, they jokingly call him the mayor of Mound, because everybody knows Jeff Kroll and Kroll Plumbing. And I'd just like to read you some words that they wrote about Julie. Julie was born November 24th, 1976 in Seoul, Korea, and she was adopted at 7 months old. She graduated from Mound High School in 1995, married her husband Jeff in 1998. They are blessed to have 2 amazing children, Jeremiah, who goes as Jerry, 24, and Samantha, Sammy, who's 16. Jeff, Jerry, and Sammy were always and will be the most important thing in her life. Julie was a devoted wife and mother. Her family was her life, and she dedicated her time in support of her husband and her children. She loved being involved in the activities, the sports teams, and the community as well. Bowling was another passion, and she organized a Sunday night league consistently, mostly of recent empty nesters from the community in an effort to keep her friends connected. Julie loved to travel to the beach destinations and created many memories with family and friends over the years. Her embroidery company supplied countless local sports teams, organizations, and companies with affordable customer apparel. Who in Mound or Orono doesn't own a Crawls Plumbing hoodie? She also loved to play bingo and was a regular at the Thursday nights at Delano American Legion. She came with her tote bag full of rainbow arrays of daubers and Lucky Charms in her hands. Concerts and fun are words synonymous with Julie. It would be difficult to find a picture of her not smiling ear to ear at a concert, and not many of us know anyone who attended more than she did. Julie died unexpectedly of a brain aneurysm on Saturday, December 3rd, 2022, at the age of 46. Julie is preceded in death by her maternal grandparents, Willie and Bunny Anderson, and paternal grandparents Herbert and Irene Swanson. She was survived by her loving husband, Jeff, and adored children, Jeremiah and Samantha, along with her mother, stepfather, Linda and Terry Tobick, and father, Rodney Swanson. Julie Kroll was truly one of a kind. She had the largest gentle heart of anybody I know, and her absence will be profound. May God bless the memory of Julie and each and every one of us. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. That's awfully hard to do, and it's a tough loss and hard to move on from that, but we will move on to community development, or actually we'll move on to agenda item 6, approval of the 2023 annual appointments, and somebody had a question on it, so if you could come up and state your name and address, and we'll do our best to answer.
It's a tough transition from that.
It's a very tough.
Yeah, Kim Carswell, 261 Signet. I'm just getting involved in local government, and I've been coming to meetings. So with the recent election, I wanted to understand why we're appointing the council assignments before the new council's in place in January. So is this normal? And if it is, does Elisa have the opportunity to select where she wants to be after this decision was made?
So that,
We can always change our appointments.
Okay.
I have reached out to her to see if she wants to get together and chat about council and what she wants to do. She has decided that she didn't want to talk with me, so it's
But
hard to.
if and when she decides to be on a assignment, she can do that after this
She
point.
can, well.
I think she is on one at least.
Yeah, but
she's
she
on
wants to
one.
be on more or a different one?
Well, she can ask, the people that are on those would have to be willing to step down that are already on those commissions.
Okay.
So that's the conversations we need to have.
But there is some movement within these,
I mean, it's just,
within the
if
year.
this is the normal time of year with the election, it just,
Yep.
things just seem a little out
yeah,
of
this
order.
is normal, and
Start
it's,
out the new year, because Aaron's on things right now that
Yeah,
he's not gonna be on January 9th when we convene our first council meeting with the new council.
well, I just encourage you, if she wants to be on something, that you're willing to move, like you said, Matt.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could I speak to that? Would you mind?
Sure.
No, thanks. Hi, Elisa Benson, 1220 Lyman Avenue. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I do want to clarify something. It's true, Mayor Walsh, that you did reach out to me for a cup of coffee, and my response to you was that if it related to city business, I'd be happy to meet you at City Hall with staff present. So that was my response over email, so I'm still
okay,
available.
thanks. Thanks for the point of clarification.
It's a point of clarification,
Yep.
but absolutely
Good,
at City
thank you.
Hall.
And typically, with typical procedure, and I think the mayor has authority to appoint, so.
Yep.
But there always has been flexibility and people have interest, so thank you for that.
But please don't take that as a, I don't want to meet. It was not over a cup of
You're gonna
coffee.
have 4 years to talk about all this, so.
Absolutely, I think it was important to clarify.
Plenty of time.
Good enough.
Appreciate it, thank
Yeah,
you.
You bet. All right, approval of the 2023 annual appointments. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. And on to agenda item number 10, LA 2256, the 200 Wood Hill Road CUP variance resolution 7325. And who is, if there's a question, and then if we head into the presentation, but yeah.
Hi, Jane Delaney, 1315 Wood Hill Avenue. I just want to confirm that the existing CUPs remain in place, like the road traffic and all of
Everything
that.
stays in place,
Yeah.
yes. The ones that, yeah, the one that's by your house, yes.
Yeah, and then number two, is there won't be any construction traffic, I'm assuming. We make sure of that
Construction traffic where?
on Wood Hill Avenue?
Laura has.
Yeah, as a comment on that, I think the applicant, you're talking about that back entrance.
Right.
I believe the applicant noted in their application that they will not be directing or using that back entrance for any parts of construction for this project. But the applicant is here tonight as well, if you'd like to bring them up to speak. But I believe they did note that as part of their application.
I didn't get a notice of it, and I'm not opposed to the development they're doing back there. I think it seems like a really nice plan. However, today, Xcel Energy was out there and said that they were kind of looking at everything along my side of the property, and I talked to them, and they're going to replace all the poles and all the electrical and everything because of this project. So will we have enough notice about that when they do that, or?
I don't believe we are in the loop when Xcel Energy decides to move forward with different projects or project expansions.
Okay, but it's related, they're doing it because of the Wood Hill.
And they might be for their own infrastructure, but it's
Okay.
their infrastructure service lines
Okay,
that they're
and then they'll notify us.
I'm not sure of their process,
All right,
unfortunately.
so it's status quo, everything stays as is.
CUPs don't go.
Yeah. Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else on that item? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve LA 22-56.
Second.
And all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Could we maybe take a short break?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a 5-minute restroom break.
The last time I was,
This is my significant other, Jerry. Okay.
This is my phone.
Yeah, she's back here. Yeah. Oh, I thought you weren't here, and then I saw you.
Yes, I do. How are you?
How's your husband doing? Okay. Your husband is-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I love your pictures of the little slide. I'm gonna start tagging mine, because I run a lot and I love it.
A lot of criticism.
Yeah, I live right off City. Yeah.
So hopefully we'll move
Oh, sure, I love it. Your pictures are the kind I take with fresh sunlight. So now I'm gonna have to tag this on my
And the house going in next year too. Boy, they cut down a lot of trees.
It is good.
We don't have trees.
Yeah, I've been busy this weekend, cutting a bunch of firewood. Cleaning up my notes, and then I'll reach out to you to send them.
Are they?
Yeah. Henry's gonna speak. Oh, yeah, he reached out to you for some. Did an expert.
Steve, do you have a water fountain here? Yep, I can walk you back there.
Okay. And that's the thing, you keep coming here.
Back to order. And we'll move on to the Community Development Report, Agenda Item 15, LA 2250, Matt Johnson, 1003 Wildhurst Trail.
I'll be recusing myself from the vote, so I'll step down.
All right, thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Mayor, Council, tonight the applicant is requesting to vacate the unimproved portions of right-of-way adjacent to 1003 Wildhorse Trail and the associated underdressed properties shown in red on the map. The request includes right-of-way of Lafayette Avenue, Grandview Place, Hattie Place, and the alley within blocks 3 and 4 as dedicated on the plat of Mount Home Park, which are highlighted in blue on the map. There's a city sewer line and a right-hand of an overhead power line within the Hattie Place right-of-way identified on the map. The applicant has proposed maintaining a utility easement over this right-of-way for the utilities. In 2018, the city reviewed a sketch plan for the properties associated with 1003 Wildhorse Trail, which also included the 10-acre property to the west. That project included vacation of the same rights-of-way that you're contemplating this evening and involved subdividing to create 7 total lots. At that time, the Planning Commission and Council were open to the proposal for vacating the rights-of-way as part of this development as long as access to Saga Hill to the west was maintained. Planning Commission and Council were not in favor of the overall project, however, resulting in the creation of substandard lots. The Planning Commission held a public hearing regarding the current vacation application at their November meeting. Following the public hearing and after discussion, the Planning Commission voted 4-0 on a motion to approve the vacation of the entire right-of-way shown in blue as applied, subject to the city maintaining a utility easement for the existing utilities in the right-of-way. Staff's recommendation was to vacate all except for Hattie Place. Neighbors provided public comment during the public hearing. Comments are detailed in the meeting minutes. Written comments from the neighbors were also received and were included in the packet for the record. Additional public comment was received at the November 28th council meeting. Those comments are also summarized in the council minutes. Staff recommends approval of the vacation of Lafayette Avenue on the north, Grandview Place on the east, and the alley within blocks 3 and 4 dedicated within the plat of Mount Home Park. Further, staff continues to recommend denial of the request to vacate Hattie Place at this time. Staff has prepared 2 resolutions for your consideration. Resolution number 1 reflects staff's recommendation, and resolution number 2 reflects the Planning Commission's recommendation for a full vacation and reservation of a utility easement within Hattie Place. Tonight, staff recommends the council adopt resolution number 1, reflecting the staff recommendation. Obviously, the applicant is here, and I will try to answer any questions you might have, but that is all I have tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? And I think we'll jump right in and have the applicant speak to us.
Okay. Acting Mayor, Council. So I purchased this, Matt Johnson. This is 1003 Wildhorse Trail. I was in front of the Planning Commission, as Melanie stated. This was an application that was a sketch plan in front of the council back in 2018 where there was discussion surrounding the vacation of these lanes. I was not on the council at that time, so it was before I was elected to city council. But I did prepare a slide, and Melanie, if you could show it, and just to give you a little history of this particular section. What's in red is what has already been vacated in this section. So those have already been done. The white portion that is kind of highlighted there is portions of the folks' houses that are actually would have been down the middle, like for example on 997, you know, the vacated lane went right down the middle of that house. So the city's cooperation was necessary. It was something that this particular property owner didn't request. And now this is just a function of cleaning up this site to make it usable. It's currently a 1 acre zoning district. I'm not making any requests to further intensify this property at all. I'm simply making it back to more usable property by removing those unintended roads. And so the staff has prepared two resolutions. I'm requesting the council to approve the second resolution, which is to vacate those lanes in green. I'm not asking for the lower section there to be vacated along the road there, because the staff and my conversations with them want to maintain the ability to expand or improve Wildhurst Trail there. So that's my request.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
So obviously the reds were done years ago because those have kind of newer houses and all that kind of stuff on it. And the person who owned that property before, where you want the green ones to be done, has owned it for, I don't know, 30 or 40 years, so there was really nothing needed to be done at the time. But he did come to us in 2018, and we did say at the time, yeah, that looked fine as long as they keep that alley, which is a whole different parcel of land that is not even dealing with this, to Saga Hill, because it's, I don't know, 300 yards or something away from Saga Hill. But I know I'm seeing some of the disingenuous stuff that's out in the world of people putting posts out in the social media. You know, they're talking about some large development that's going right next to Saga Hill Preserve, and this, you're talking, it's a 1 acre zoning, and you've got what, 5 acres in there?
It's under 5 acres.
I mean, so you could get 3, I don't know, I don't think you could get 4, you could probably get 3 max if you wanted to subdivide it and build and sell it or whatever. So that's the most you could do in there. It's not a huge development, which has been what's been sent out to social media.
So I have a feeling that as the night progresses, we're gonna have some public comment about the area, and then maybe some, it might come down to it, but dispelling of some probably rumor mill.
Sure.
So if you'll stand by and maybe make some clarifications if needed. Otherwise, I think I'll open it up to the public and invite people to speak, but let's keep it to a couple minutes and not get
Yeah, I just have one quick question.
and not get too repetitive upon ourselves, but we'll have a nice methodical entry into this. And Rich, you have a question?
The Hattie Place thing, that is something that has never been developed at all, correct? It's
The Hattie Place, that portion?
Yeah.
Well, in fact, the existing garage, this isn't a super illustration of that, but the existing garage is actually in the middle of that, so.
But no roads have ever been built.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Can you show us where the existing garage is from that picture? Is that possible? Okay, that's where I thought, right there.
Right there, so
Okay.
it kind of straddles that property line.
Okay.
On the survey, it
Yeah.
actually is a little more. And so that was built, you know, in talking to the heir that I purchased the property from, you know, that's in the 40s. You know, that garage has been there since the 40s. So.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right, let's open it up to the public. Please state your name and address.
Good evening, my name is Wendy Williamson, 2200 Plymouth Road, Minnetonka. I'm the executor and heir of the estate of Christopher Morgard. He owned the 15-acre property at 1003 Wildhurst Trail, which consists of 5 acres with a house and access to a channel on Forest Lake, plus a parcel of 10 wooded acres. I'm here tonight because there's so much misinformation being spread about the property from neighbors, some of whom are angry that they couldn't buy it. I still own the 10 acres. I sold the 5-acre parcel to Matt Johnson, who is currently remodeling the house. He has no plans to overdevelop the property for himself nor sell it to a developer. I trust him because a good friend of mine has known him his entire life. I had a fiduciary responsibility to the estate to sell it for a good price, and even though it could have been sold to a developer for twice the price, I chose not to do that. Chris did not want the land reshaped nor the trees cut down, and I'm honoring that. Some factual history. The house and garage were built in 1946. Chris's parents, Fred and Harriet Morgard, bought the 5 acres with the house in 1956. Fred got the channel dug in 1961. The adjoining 10 acres was purchased by Harriet in the mid-70s after Fred died. The request for lane vacation is only for the 5 acres, not the 10. There are no fire lanes cutting through the 10 acres. There's an easement on the south side between the neighboring 1 acre lot, which is under development. In the last 2 months, a number of trees were cut down on that lot, and some people mistakenly think that's the 1003 property. The easement between that lot and the 10 acres goes up to the Orono Park. It's true that this path could be better marked, but no one can walk on any neighbor's parcels without trespassing. If Chris saw people running or walking in his woods, he told them to get out and pointed to the south easement path. He did not allow anyone to ski or snowmobile through any part of his property. So claims of having paths to the lake and accessing the channel through his yard to go fishing are wrong. The access for the right-hand power line running north to south in the driveway will still exist. Neighbors fearing development and remembering a lot of trucks in the driveway this summer should realize that it took a lot of loads to get rid of 66 worth of years of stuff. None of those who are complaining now came to help me nor to ask what was going on at the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Miss Penny.
Yep. Hi everyone, Penny Psyche, 2874 Casco Point Road. I'm so glad we got all that information. This is in reference to the application, and I want to wrap it into a proposal. So Matt Johnson bought the land with the easements. He's told us that he's building his own home on the property and renovating the existing house for his parents. That's all been confirmed just now from a third party, or the seller. Let's see, we buy our homes based on the location. Orono used to be about preserving its natural resources. The neighbors invested in the character of the setting and want to continue to enjoy their privacy. For, as I understand from the other party, okay, that's exactly what, that she wants the property to be developed, does not want it to be developed because it would change the character of the site. And then this is number 5 point, the DNR review was no vacation shall be made unless it appears in the interest of the public to do so. They also noted that any vacation may allow development that would impact conservation of natural resources, habitats, since this property has never been developed before and has access to public waters. Many of us have wondered why the city has seemingly ignored the guidance of the Minnesota Department charged with management of public natural resources. And number 6, undeveloped land near the lake is becoming scarce. And so here's a solution that I'm proposing. Number 1, since the council and planning intend to give the land to the councilman, we need to protect the rest of Orono as owners of that land. We're all owners, okay? We're as residents of Orono. And so we want to preserve, just as she said, the seller, a covenant shall be placed on the deed that states that one house can be built on the property. The existing house would become an ancillary structure, a guest house. The ability to have such was just approved by the council. A covenant attached to the deed means that it is on the land, so if ownership changes to a contractor or an LLC or some other entity, they are also bound to that one house limit. And then outside the scope of that, of this this item on the agenda, there are 3,100 households in Orono, and there's a limit to how much city structures and services can be financed through taxes. Building more houses to add to the tax base is one way to increase income, but another way is to better manage our expenditures. Cases in point: 1, district fire services have been favored for over 30 years.
Hey Penny, I hate cutting you off, but we gotta stick to the application.
Okay, but then it's get public support for big expenditures, and then the other one was stop giving away public land, especially to those who need to recuse themselves when it comes to a vote. That in itself is recognition of conflict of interest. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak on the matter? Yes, sir.
Thank you. Henry Branningham, 3185 County Road 6. So, I don't live anywhere near there. I have no particular interest in this. I am, however, interested in the process. So I went through and I looked at the Planning Commission notes, and Penny was one of the people at the meeting, I believe. There were 14 people either at the meeting, citizens at the meeting, or having submitted written comments. The score for and against by your citizens was 14-0, 100% against. And I'd like to read some of the comments that were in the minutes for the people's interest. And these are just some, I won't say random comments, I pulled them out of the minutes. One person said, extremely unfair, not for the benefit of the citizens of Orono. Another said, I have a hard time wrapping my head around giving land away for free. Another one, the big question is that none of us knows the intention of Mr. Johnson. And I'll say parenthetically, it's interesting that now we're talking about, oh, it's gonna be one house, but our council members are discussing back and forth, gosh, maybe you could do 3. What does that say to us? Another comment, the plan is incomplete. And this was from a former member of the Planning Commission. Another one, Minnesota statute 412.853, this has already been referenced. This is state law. The DNR didn't just decide this. This is state law. That it is required that no vacation shall be made unless it appears in the interest of the public to do so. This person said, there is no public benefit. Another person says, why are you giving these parcels away? Another person says, we agree with the DNR. There doesn't appear to be a public benefit. I'm almost done. Another person, far-reaching implications highlighted by the DNR impacting Forest Lake Bay. Another said, simply, I am strongly against vacating that right away. So according to the minutes, after hearing all this, the Planning Commission voted 4-0 to recommend vacating these properties. I'm shocked. I'm sorry, maybe I'm naive, but I have 2 questions then. Is there anybody in Orono, besides the people up here and the staff, that think this is a good idea? I haven't heard one person, except you all, say this is a good thing. And then the other thing is, has it occurred to anybody what an incredible ethics problem this is? This is a sitting council member. Thank you for recusing yourself. That's a step. You should resign and then...
No, let's focus up here.
Well, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. He did recuse himself. But I think this is an enormous ethics issue. I'll say again, I have nothing to do with this. I'm concerned about your process. And thank you for listening.
Thank you. So moving forward, let's save applause for after the meeting.
Hello, my name is Bridget Hamlin. I live at 4665 West Branch Road. I'm across the marsh from this potential issue. I don't have anything prepared. I've never done this before, but I'm seriously worried about the impact to the wildlife and to the rest of the property owners. We have a cougar on our property, we have coyotes, we have fox, we have turkeys, we have all sorts of incredible wildlife in this area, some of which live in the park, some of which live on this property. I'm seriously worried about the impact to my property value because part of the value of my property is the serene nature of what my property backs up to, this incredible marsh area, which will be completely impacted if 3, 5, 7, 8 houses go in. I've heard many numbers. There's not any official word. That really concerns me. The fact that you all are considering this with no serious, actual plan that we've been given. I think it is a huge ethics issue because he does sit on the board, and I think you all need to think about that. And I think as people of this town, we are very concerned, not only about this issue, but any ethics issue with the board. And I really would like you to really reconsider this because the rest of us property owners are incredibly concerned This impacts more than just you people. It impacts more than just the taxation of the town. It impacts all of us who have bought property in this town, who are raising our children in this town, who have come here because of what we consider Orono, rural residential. We consider it a place where the wildlife runs free, where our children can run free. And we've seen a ton of development in the last couple of years. This is one piece of property that really does not need to be developed. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks.
Brian Turbyville, 997 Wildhorse Trail. And you know that thing when you sit around the room and you look and you say, where's the stupid guy in the room? And if you can't find him, it's probably you. Here I am. Come to a public meeting with facts and items that make this not a good thing to do. And the public, the commission, the other board, I don't think they listened to what the public had to say. I don't think they heard the public and what we stood here and said. It felt like it was so disingenuous to even come up and speak because that decision was made before we even showed up. And I don't know when this should have started to change it. I hoped to come here and hear something different, but then just the comments as we lead into this, you lead the applicant. I'm not sure you would lead a resident like me, but you lead the applicant to, well, I think you just intend on doing one home. I don't think you can fit more. So why are you leading the applicant to help him in his plight? Melanie, would you pull up? Pick either one. So this is Wildhorse Trail. This is as you walk down the road of Wildhorse Trail. There's the end of the channel that we're talking about. And it is private land. It's owned by a private landowner. And I hope this council doesn't tell me one day what I can and cannot do with my property. I want to stay within the guidelines, within the rules, and be able to do exactly what I intend to do. I don't want a building permit or something denied for something that isn't within the charter. This doesn't come there. Here's the jewel at the end of Orono. There's, I don't know how many acres. I've said 100. I don't know what it is. There's the channel up in the upper part of the area. There's the wooded area that we're talking about. It connects to many, many plots that are 7, 8, 10 acres, very low density, very low population. It also connects the 10-acre property, connects to the park up at the top of the hill. You just scroll up. Here's another shot. This is what we're talking about. This is the jewel of Orono, and we're talking about giving part of it away. Next. We have eagles, we have other, you can keep going through these owls. Well, let's go back up to the owls. Those are on that property. Those are walking through those nature trails, and that's where those were sitting in trees. We enjoy this wildlife as we go through it. You can click down, and the next one, and the next one. Here's where we're talking about. It was said at the park, or at the other commission meeting, I can't think of the name. It was said at the other meeting, this is worthless land. This is low, mushy, mucky, unwalkable, untrailable. Here I'm standing on public land, and as I walk forward, and keep walking forward, this is the easement that we're gonna give away. This is what touches the lake of Forest Lake Bay. I'll look back down that trail. It's navigatable, it's snowmobile, it's walkable, it's achievable. Keep going up. This is getting close to 151. Here's a trail, it's firm ground. You keep on going. There's 151 up on the up at the top. And if you look to the left, here's the trail that goes up the back or the north side of the property. Keep going. That's looking back. There's going up the trail. Walk up the trail and look back down. This is the trail that we're talking about that was I don't know if the word is testified that's unnavigatable, okay? There's a power line. This is where it connects with the Hattie Place and comes back. Keep on going. Walks down, the trail is wide, it's open. And this is what neighbors have talked about, this is what this property will look like, which is the next property over once it's developed. And if we go, can we pull up this picture, Melanie? Or let's do a different one first. Can you go to that other PowerPoint slide I had? I'm sorry.
The other
Yeah,
PowerPoint?
yeah, the second one. So this is a overhead, I think it was 1957 when the channel had been dug. And there's what I assume to be the mortgage stock at the end of the channel. And if you click to the next picture, here's today's overview of what that channel is. The survey map shows that channel going 50 feet into the Morgard property and the Johnson property. And so Mr. Johnson joined the rest of us that owned property on the bottom of the lake, but the lake touches the property. You can get to that easement and you can walk it along the outer edge of the property. You can go up the north side of the property, which is in between two properties. And the other thing is that I'm pretty sure charter or whatever it would say, said if you're going to give away an easement, it would be split between the two homeowners, not given to one, okay? So I'm not sure about that north easement, why it's not going to the other homeowners and why it's going to this applicant. And then let's go back to this picture. So in this picture, especially in the winter, there are walkers and there are people, and I live in the house 997 Wildhurst Trail. That's been talked about. The easement was given away for my house. That is probably accurate. That easement was given away to build my house and others on that development. Nobody's asking for an easement to be given away for a house to be developed or what's going to happen. Again, the cart before the horse. I said that in the last meeting, maybe the last two. The only thing that puts burden on the current owner is that alleyway up the center, right there. So those outer strips that run the outer rim of the property, the Hattie Place, bring the important power and other services, and it could be expanded and probably needs to be to service that part of the city, is coming down on the left-hand side, and you can walk a full trail around that from the street, and then the park goes up to the other side. Ultimately, again, 10 plus people stood up and said, we don't agree with this. Taxpayers standing and saying, we don't agree with this. Nobody wants to put burden on the property owner. I don't believe we should put burden on the property owner. Can you pull up these that you emailed me today?
No,
okay.
I don't have those.
So there are proposals for the property that have been floated, and I did get them, and it does show either 4 or 5 homes being built, and there is a lesser attempted to version that shows 2 homes being built. But if you look at the overall layout of what's been floated, so last comment. If it smells like a duck and it quacks like a duck and it looks like a duck, it's probably a duck. If a boat comes down my channel this summer and says, is this where the lots are for sale? If a realtor had said to me, boy, I think there's some lots for sale up in there. If other neighbors have heard there's dredging plans to widen the channel and expand it to its original state, if there's activity on the property that ends just before all of this happens, if there's a gathering on the property to celebrate Chris's life, I don't know, less than a week or about a week before the closing of Mr. Johnson buying the property, he could have come and met half the neighbors, and it would have been a good introduction. But the quiet line, let's slide it through, let's wait till Christmas, let's put it through when the snowbirds are gone and there's less people here to oppose it, it makes no sense. So I leave with this question. Am I the stupid guy in the room?
No.
Yes, sir.
I'm Ken Peterson. I live at 1074 Wildhurst Trail. So, I have the property that's kind of at the bottom of what's up on the screen right now. In the corner, there, yes, thank you. And I guess I lend my voice to what you just heard. What is the public purpose here? I think to give that up, an access point to the waters of Forest Lake, it just doesn't seem like it serves a public purpose. And I walk my dog in those areas. I'd like to see some of the debris cleaned out from the corner where Wildhurst Trail turns, going straight west up into Saga Hill, and have that better marked so that we could enjoy that from Wildhurst and not just have to access the Saga Hill development from on top of Garden Court or Tonka. So anyway, where's the public purpose here? That's what I wondered.
Thank you.
Good evening. Eric Truskowski, 4665 West Branch Road, Orono. Neighboring property. I think it's an incomplete plan. I can't see the public good as mentioned here by several other members. And I appreciate, I would never deny a property owner the right to use their property. I support that entirely. My background is residential development, so I'm not here to say that we should not develop. I think we need to develop responsibly. And I would challenge each of you to that same thing. The fact that a sitting council member is bringing this forward, that raises concerns for me. Serious concerns, and it should raise concerns for each of you as well. I don't see the public good. I also know that my neighbor at 4505 has been approached about an easement for access from 151 that aligns with Hattie Place. I again return to, this is an incomplete plan. I think it's unwise and bordering on foolish to go ahead and approve something without having a full plan in place. And I highly discourage you as city council members from doing that. I moved to this town for the wilderness, to support the wilderness. I'll mirror what my wife, Bridget, had said. That's a great wilderness corridor. We have a lot of wildlife in there. I'd like to see a complete plan. And without seeing a complete plan, I wholeheartedly do not agree with this. And I think it's in favor of, and that there's serious ethical questions here.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak on the matter? Yes.
I have a question, because I'm learning this. Kim Carswell, 261 Signet. If there's no public benefit, what's driving the council to let this happen, if you're looking out for the public? So I don't understand the benefits. I remember at one meeting you were talking about cleaning up lines. What's the benefit of doing this? And can you answer that?
Very simply, the start of the process is an application. We can't say, no, we're not gonna listen to anything.
But what's the benefit of doing something that has no benefit to the public?
And that's what we take public comment for and then talk about.
But can I ask, why are we doing this if there's no benefit? Like, what's the benefit to Orono to sell this property?
Because an application was submitted. So we entertain it, just like we did in 2018.
But if there's no benefit to the public and you're looking out for the public, why would 14 people not be listened to and then the council vote for? Like, what's driving this?
The planning commission?
Yes.
Yeah. The planning commission, I think somebody went through the bullet points of the meeting and talked about what they talked about.
But we'll talk about that at the council after everybody has a chance to talk.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, so I'm Laura Sandin, 4505 West Branch, so the upper corner adjacent to the sort of kitty corner. So I'm Melanie, talk to you. So I have some concerns about that Hattie alley, and I just don't understand exactly what the impact will be, and that's my concern, is how this is gonna impact the wildlife and just what the plan is. That's without a plan, that makes me concerned, so I just wanna share those concerns today. I know a lot of what else is
concerns in 101 Wildhurst Trail. And I guess my concerns relate to the public interest, of which there doesn't appear to be any from most of the public comments. I understand that the new purchaser has sort of said he was building 2 houses. If so, I'd like to see the plan for that. If that indeed is his plan, it seems reasonable for him then to bring in that plan. If he's unwilling to bring in that plan, then I don't know what the plan is, and that concerns me. It would be nice to have specifics about what indeed is going to happen to that lot. And I believe if the new owner wants to build 1 house and remodel the old house, that should be a part of the plan. Thank you.
Thank you. And final call for comments, yes?
Yeah, I'd like to, Mike Mooney, 101 Douglas Drive in Buffalo. Chris Morgart was my cousin. Harriet and Fred Morgart were my uncle and aunt. And so I'm very familiar with the property there. I've been going out there since the middle 50s. And it's a piece of private property. What I'm hearing tonight is that there is some kind of a feeling that this is a park. There are imaginary roads, but no one has ever gone over those roads. The way the existing house is built, on the north side there's a wall of windows and you can look out over that property. And I've heard something about people going fishing, crossing that land. I have not seen that, and I've been at the house a lot. People that are doing that are trespassing. Chris has died, and so obviously something's going to happen to that property. It's been sold, but it was for sale. He's had for sale signs on there for, I'd say, 2 years with various realtors. People that wanted the property had a chance to buy it. Perhaps if there was some thought that Orono might want it for a park, the opportunity was there, but that didn't happen. So now it's a matter of that the owner wants to sell the property. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll bring it back up to council, and if there's any, yeah.
One more.
All right, one more.
Igor Cargill, 1035 Wildhurst. I'm just a couple houses down from that property. So I know Matt. I knew Chris well. We did a number of drinks together. I know Luke. He's looking to potentially buy a piece of that 10 acres. So my concern is, with the Hattie place, part of the concern is if you ever have deliveries that big semi trucks that come down the street, that's the only way for them to really turn around, just to pull up to that, just close the driveway, Hattie's place, and back up. There's no other way for a semi truck to access that road and be able to turn around. So if we give that away, does that access disappear? What would happen with all those large trucks delivering things to people that live in Wildhurst? The other concern I had is, obviously that path going up to Saga Hill, and then, people have already addressed it. So if Matt wants to build a house there, if he wants to remodel that house, nothing is preventing him from remodeling the house with the way it is right now. He doesn't need those easements. He can continue remodeling it. And people have said that they're not objecting him building a house. My concern is we give up that Hattie place, does that potentially lead to the 10 acres being connected to 5 acres and being able to split that property into more lots than just do it today? So why don't we see a plan of what Matt wants to do, and if it's a reasonable plan? Wendy, who owns the lot, who sold the lot to Matt, said Chris strips of land away. I mean, to me, the only one that's in the way of Matt being able to build a house is that one running right down the middle. Everything else is not really preventing anything from being developed in that piece of property. So, just my thought. It's like, I don't have a problem with him building anything on the lot. I don't have a problem with you being my neighbor. I like you. I'm building a house on Wildhurst. I wouldn't want somebody preventing me from being able to use my property legally, but why do something without seeing what the plan is? And right now, there's nothing preventing him from remodeling what's there. And if he wants to build something on, you know, the bigger piece of land or divide it up into a couple lots, right? It sounds like everybody has the right to know what the plan is before you give public land away.
Thanks. Thank you. Would the applicant like to
I'd like to say
conclude it?
Dan Iverson, 4640 Roseland Drive. I don't live near there. I like wildlife too. I'm wondering why consistently the city council seems to ignore engineers' recommendations and DNR recommendations and dismiss that as routine. Is the DNR lacking in intelligence or in expertise that they don't need to be listened to? Is the public comment unnecessary and doesn't need to be listened to? The comments that are made about propriety, I think are justified. It doesn't look right and it leads to suspicion of our city government. You might be well advised to proceed with caution and consideration, just for the consideration of the rest of the people in this province or this city. I was impressed with your city budget. He knows what he's doing.
I was wrong.
Likeable.
He switched sides. He normally sits over here. It's
Okay,
Adam knows what
he
he's
moved
doing.
around, okay? I wasn't watching, okay? I got sidetracked, okay? He's like a truly nice guy. So I'm kind of impressed the way you're putting money aside and all that, but I think you need to, it would be best if you step back a little bit. Just my recommendation to you guys. So,
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I'll call it back up to council unless the applicant has any final comment.
I guess I can attempt to address a couple of these things. You know, it's interesting. I received an email on this from another resident and was against it. I called him and I talked to him about the process and what I was trying to do, and then he sent an email saying, you know, after talking to you, I'm in favor of what you're trying to do. So thanks for talking to me. And this has been interesting, this application, for a couple of reasons. One, you know, these will be my neighbors. They had a neighborhood meeting that I learned of from one of the neighbors, and I said, it was happening at that moment. I live a few minutes away, and I said, well, I'll come, I'll be there, and I'll share, you know, my knowledge. And they said I was not welcome. I called multiple of the people that were here, and I offered to let them learn more and talk to me about it, and they don't return my call. And then I hear stories about, you know, I'm trying to extend the property from North Branch Road. I just heard that tonight. That's a new one. I'm trying to vacate the road so a road doesn't go through there. I'm trying to prevent future development through there. So it would make 0 sense that I would try to make a road down to North Branch. I'm not offering to sell these to anybody. This is for my use, but at the same time, I believe was the best thing I heard tonight. The most fair and honest thing I heard tonight was that this is a piece of private property, not a park. And, you know, people might want to know what I'm doing. I'm curious what Igor's doing. He's been building that house for a long time. But I don't have a right to know what Igor's doing inside of his house or what my house is going to look like. So I am a pro-property right person. I've extended that to every resident that has come before this council, the same thing. And I want it extended to me because I am a resident. And this idea that I should be penalized because I'm an elected official here, you know, is a foreign concept to me. I appreciate that people want to make sure I'm not getting a privilege that somebody else is. That, I respect that opinion. I understand why they're asking the question. But that question can be answered by the 2018 application that did occur. I was not a part of it. I wasn't on the council. And this city council was in agreement with the vacation of this because it's reasonable, it's consistent with our past, whether it was the 60s, the 70s, or the 80s, or things that we've done within the last couple of years right around this neighborhood. So, I get it. People might like and appreciate the open space that they've enjoyed and maybe even been trespassing on the Morgarts when they owned it. I get it. But at the same time, this is zoned for a use. And the last thing I'm going to address is about there's some sort of question that why, if it's vacated, is it going to meet? This property has 3 PIDs. It was allowed to have, right now it's allowed to have 3 different properties on it. And so all the vacations that have already occurred there have already been given to the plots of land around it. The only vacations left are for my plot of land. And the city of Orono does not dictate where the vacated property goes to. The county does. Is that correct, Soren?
It is.
So the city of Orono is not dictating that I get it. This is through the county. So there's lots of other things to potentially address, but to stay consistent with the application. I mean, this is a vacation to actually impede future development, not to enhance it, as I heard here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question?
Absolutely.
I appreciate what you say about you own the land.
Address it to the council, not Matt.
Okay. I appreciate what he has to say about the fact that he owns the land and he can do what he wants with the land. We all have that right. We have not heard, as a populace, exactly what his plan for the land is. We've heard a lot of rumors. I have a neighbor who was contacted, not this isn't a rumor, about the potential of a road going in next to her property to access Hattie Lane across the marsh. These are not rumors, these are facts, and we have not seen an actual plan. He's asking to take over public space, not just his space, to create what? We don't know. 3 lots, 5 lots, 7 lots, we don't know. As property owners, we have a right to know because we all bought property around this beautiful, pristine area based on what the area was. It affects all of our properties. And as the city council, your obligation is to the entire city, not just to Matt, not just to one property owner. And until he comes up with an actual plan that we can all stand behind and look at, I don't think it's fair for you, or is it ethical because he sits on your board, to make a recommendation that he gets this public land. We're not talking about his land, we're talking about public land that we all own. And I think that we all need to really consider that. I have a right to do what I want on my property within limits. So does he. But this is not his property. This is public land that he's asking to take over. And I think we all need to remember that. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to pull it up, Penny. I'm going to pull it up to the council for council discussion.
Well, he's a real estate agent.
Yeah, Penny, we know that. And I think you said that before too.
He doesn't,
Okay.
he owns.
Penny.
Well, but he's never.
We're gonna talk about it.
He's never spoken.
Okay.
There's precedence on the vacation that was
Hey,
done on February.
no. We're pulling up to the council now. I think we've heard pretty loud and clear, and it got pretty repetitive. So thank you for that, though. That's what we do. So I don't know if we want to go down the line, give our thoughts, and Victoria, you can say pass.
No, I do have more questions. So 2018, refresh my memory, so 2 years ago. We were not in support of the non-conforming lots, correct? But we were in support of vacation of the easements.
True. In 2018, the application included the 10-acre piece to the west, and that 10-acre piece to the west was showing a number of lots that did not meet the width requirement of the RR1B 2-acre district. The 10-acre piece is zoned 2 acres. The pieces on the east side of Patty Place are 1-acre lots.
Got it.
So legitimately, you could do 3 there.
True.
Okay. But we did do a vacation on that also in 18.
We supported, we
supported
did
it,
officially.
right. It didn't pass.
It was a sketch plan.
Yes.
Again, so when we vacate easements of a similar nature, now they're all different, right? Because we have roads in the middle of the lake here, which is odd. What is the order of events typically? Just, also for the public. So is it that you vacate the actual roads first, or is it that you need a plan to show, how does that typically work, or is it flexible and it can go either way?
A vacation request can come with a development plan, or it can be done just by a property owner, as this is wishing to vacate the public space within their property for whatever purpose. Oftentimes they're in our small lot neighborhoods, there are alleys that separate two halves of the property, and we have vacated those alleyways.
So it goes to Hennepin County.
Pardon me?
They do the process.
The applicant makes a request for a vacation, and whatever the application involves. We do our analysis, we publish to the utility companies, we publish to the DNR if it does access the lake. We get that feedback, we make a decision if there's a public purpose for the land. Once we make that determination, the request, or that decision goes to the county, and the county looks at where that land came from the original plat, and the county assigns that land to the parcels. Oftentimes, for example, on this Hattie Place, 30 feet, the other 30 feet, the western 30 feet of Hattie Place has been vacated. I don't know what year that was vacated, but it is now part of this 10-acre piece. That's the half that went to the western side. This 30 feet would be assigned back to the eastern half. As with Lafayette, which runs east-west on the north, it is fully within the Mount Home Park plat. It will not, in our understanding, be vacated to the property to the north because it did not come from that land originally. It was this piece of land. That's how the county assigns it. So sometimes 2 people are benefiting from that, and sometimes it's 1 party.
Okay. No, that's helpful, because I'm just trying to remember all the details of 2018. I get it, if it's been natural for a long time, why you wouldn't want it to change. There's a property in front of our house, has an old farmhouse. Once he sells it, someone's gonna knock it down and block our view of the lake. I don't want it to happen, but I don't, they have the right to do that, so, but I appreciate the perspective of change, so, I don't know, what else do you guys think?
I think the thing with this is we have precedence, because there's been areas that have had things vacated, so those homes are there. We would almost be saying, okay, we're gonna take back those vacations, and whoever lives there, you got a vacation going through your home. Because we don't wanna ruin the natural landscape. That piece of it is a big issue. I am a property rights believer, always have been. As long as people are abiding by what the rules are as far as setbacks and so forth and conformity in lots. It's really not up to us to direct that. And cleaning up some of these issues around the city, I think has been important. And you've got some of these easements that are there because of horse and buggy trails. You know, they're just not applicable today. So to say don't clean them up, you know, you need to. Some of them go right through the bottom of the lake. So what's the purpose in saving them there? And basically, it's to sit there and prevent somebody from building something on their private property, to control what they can do with their own land. And unfortunately, when people do that, they never look at, you know, the gentleman was saying, you know, look in the crowd, look in the mirror, because you wouldn't want that done to your private land. You wouldn't want somebody to control and tell you what you can do on your private lot. And basically, when we have these types of old easements, that's what this is about to me. That's what I see. You know, I'm by far no expert at it, but that's just my opinion.
I think the public good is that we are cleaning these things up and actually making them developable and livable. Obviously, this has had vacations on these easements and alleys done on where the houses are currently. They've done it on the 10-acre parcel already. This plot of land which ties into all the other stuff actually in Forest Lake was done like 130 years ago when the water was 15 feet lower, and there's plots of land underwater that go onto people's shorelines. So this is a whole connection of roads that were put in place way before all that stuff, before the dam got put in and the water raised. I mean, it's just unbelievable what we have going on back then that nobody ever cleaned up. And so we have these things, and obviously this person who's owned the property for the last 30, 40, 50 years didn't care, it's no big deal, but in the meantime, all the other stuff was vacated. From a DNR standpoint, you know, the DNR is, for good, bad, or different, whether you like them or not, their policy is they just don't approve anything. So when you don't approve anything, it's hard to take it seriously from my perspective. The gentleman who came up here who's from Buffalo, I mean, said it right. This is not a park, this is private property. And I know people have been walking in there, and maybe no one not to get to walk in there anymore because it's not your property. And we don't get to tell people how many houses they get to build. The reason you know what can be there is because we have zoning regulations that dictate what you can and cannot do. So that's what you know and why you buy property in the area that you're in. We have the same thing over in Brown Road, when all the people over there had 2-acre zones, and the people wanted to come in and make it 1-acre zones. And we said, no, it's 2-acre zones. Everybody bought stuff here knowing it's 2 acres. And we've been the firewall on that. And that's why you buy stuff in an area, and we've held that. So I find it very disingenuous to make that kind of comment. I find it a little bit offensive to talk about ethical issues. You know, we've had, in the 8 years I've been on here, I think we've had 1 planning commission member, now 1 council member come up before here about a property division or vacation of something in 8 years. I mean, we have lots of people between our planning commission and our parks commission and our council that we're all property owners, and we have developers, we have people that are in different kinds of real estate, we have people that are like Penny and they're realtors. So we have them all over the place, all through the city. And we've had 1 in planning commission and 1 in city council in 8 years. So I take a little bit offense that there's some kind of ethics issue going on. Yeah, you can laugh about that. Yeah, I find it very disingenuous for you to laugh about saying that we have ethic issues. Yeah, I find that I have a problem with that. So, I know that there's people who wanted to buy that land that didn't get to buy the land. So there's people who have grudges. We don't make decisions because the people have a bullhorn in here and they just bring in people and yell at us. We follow the common sense rule. If it makes common sense and we're better in the community and doing what we're doing, we've done that. And we've done that over the 8 years that I've been up here with Aaron, and all the different zoning things that we've changed, and all the different things with sexual predators that we've changed. We have done things for the betterment of the community. And so I think this is actually cleaning stuff up, and it's gonna be good for the area. The 10 acres to the left, they're all 2 acres. So if somebody wanted to divide that up, but it's all 2 acres, so you can only do so much with it. But at least everybody knows what it's zoned, and we have not deviated from that at all. So I'm personally in favor of getting this cleaned up. The owner, we can't tell him what he can or can't do, but he has to follow the zoning. He has to follow the setbacks and everything else. And we don't make new lots if he's gonna divide them that don't meet all those kind of things. There can't be any variances for new lots.
The clean slate rule.
The clean slate rule.
Would that be a motion?
Yes, I would make a motion to approve resolution number 2, reflecting the planning commission's recommendation for a full vacation and reservation of the utility easement within Hattie Place.
Motion by Walsh. Is there a second?
I'd like to discuss this issue a little more.
We can discuss it with a second.
What's that?
You do discussion after the second.
Oh, to second the motion? No, I wanna, before we.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
and then for discussion, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not ready to
Okay.
accept the motion right now. I wanna talk about it a
Okay.
little bit more.
Okay, you're up.
Okay, so, thinking about the DNR and somebody bringing that up, I have an experience with the DNR in my local area because we have a channel where the wall is literally failing. And it's some old timbers that are basically just going to drop into the lake. The homeowners wanted to repair that wall with riprap and rock, which is about as natural as you get, but the DNR said no. So they'd rather have these old timbers drop into the lake and just leave it alone. That's not an environmental thing. That's a control thing. It doesn't make any sense. So when I hear the DNR wouldn't want this or that, I do take that with somewhat a grain of salt. I do. When we've discussed hearing people going through somebody's private property to view things or to have access to the lake, that is trespassing. You know, this gentleman stated it perfectly. You know, you're walking across somebody's private property. You don't have the right to do that. I think Matt said that he did extend to be at this meeting get together regarding this purchase, and he was not welcome. I think that's unfortunate because if that's the case, you would hope that there could have been more discussion and possibly a lot of concerns quelled, you know, with that discussion. And people could have had that discussion to say, you know, what are your plans? What are you looking to do? I think an important thing is the lady who was here, who was representing the estate owner, the seller, she seemed pretty confident and comfortable. And that to me is a pretty good sign because it was a friend who had that land for a long period of time. This other gentleman who spoke about being out there, I don't want to misquote you, but maybe back to the 50s, that's pretty substantial time. So I think those things kind of come into play. I would welcome Matt if he wants to share what his plans are, if you want to talk about it. If you don't, that's fine too. But maybe that could squash some people's concerns about the project. But controlling what somebody does with their own private land, as long as it's within code, we don't do that. We're not the land police. You can't pick and choose, you have to play within the rules. And issues like this with old design easements that really have no purpose, we have vacated them. yes, stuff under the lake, when you've got lake water there, roads, it's not necessary. We've cleaned up stuff because times have changed from the 1900s to when things were platted, and lake levels have changed and so forth, so things are different. You know, if you wanted to keep Hattie Place, the one person that was there is, would they be okay, the person on West Branch, if we just said, okay, we'll keep Hattie Place, we'll pave it, and we'll just make it go right through, all the way through to West Branch, because we could probably do that. Would that be an open option that somebody wants to talk about, is really throwing the road through there? Because if we have it there, and we have the ability to do it, should we do it? Or does it really not have a place there? You know? If it has no place there, then vacating it's not a problem. You know? Just some thoughts.
That's good common sense.
You know? I think I'm good. Thank you.
Second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second by Crosby. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4-0, and we'll take a couple of minutes for another bathroom break before we move on to the community development update, if there is anything.
I do. Great. That meeting place? I mean, I have a problem, I talked to the city with Lyle Ryan, they gave me a shed, so they gave me, said, you know, we put in a 4-lane road car to get out of the center of the road, which would have been my shed, we closed the whole thing. There's nothing, definitely nothing to do about it. And I still love us, because the dogs moving on my property up there, we don't talk about it. But that's why I look at it. But on the other hand, I want much more. And I feel sad that we got one of these Now, I always staff, right? And for executive, how are you? So yeah, you're skinny now. Oh yeah, I'm gonna come in tomorrow. There must be a lot of cash.
Yeah, there's not too many sports for a long time.
All right, and then moving on, we don't have a community development update. Do we have we had a pretty lengthy, I think, finance report at the beginning. Unless Orono has anything to add.
Did you give us a slide?
I always have more to add.
Oh.
Give us the slide.
We are over budget on building permit revenues. And by quite a margin, you can see I've updated to reflect November building activity. We are at $672,000 of revenue. The budget was originally $557,000. So 121% of revenue.
All right, so I want to hear that. We're keeping
And
up.
that's my finance report.
And then I'll just add that Councilmember Crosby had to leave, and it was 8:30 that he left. What do we got? City. I don't know if I can get any jabs in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, the good news is I have no updates.
Oh, thank goodness. I'll miss you, Soren. Your fingers are crossed. The city administrator engineer report.
Nothing for the group tonight.
Very good. We're down to public comment. And as always, this is an opportunity for the public to address city council, 3 minutes per person. And Mr. Brad.
Brad Erickson, 2485 Independence Road. It's unfortunate that Mr. Crosby had to leave. I'm encouraged, however, as a result of our last meeting 2 weeks ago. We're finally having a back and forth dialogue regarding what initially brought me here in the first place, starting in April of this year. The inappropriate videos and Nazi rhetoric being spewed by certain members of this council, two in particular. Many questions remain, and I am hopeful we can finally start addressing some of these. How is it that the sitting mayor of one of the most affluent cities on earth in the 21st century is allowed to peddle Nazi comparisons for political gain, then threatened by intimidation the second coming of the Third Reich via Facebook Messenger? How is it that Mr. Crosby, second to the mayor, is allowed to peddle Nazi comparisons, propagate extremism, then act as if to serve the community he swore to protect? Is this really our new normal? These two men, these two, brought a Nazi narrative to this city and to these chambers through their words and actions. It is these men who must be held to account. The very day you, Mr. Walsh, unsolicited, sent me the Facebook video invoking the extermination of 6 million Jews, you sealed your political future. Shameful. This has been and will continue to be my duty as the grandson of Holocaust survivors. It is also my honor and privilege to speak for those who no longer can. In addition to the 6 million Jews murdered in cold blood, another 5 million less than desirables were also executed. Then there are the millions that survived. How many times will they be crucified? You are courting a deep, dark, and depraved ideology, the depths of which you cannot imagine. No one should be flirting with such filth and vile messaging, especially our elected officials. This is very dangerous territory, and both of you are ignorant, intolerant, and dangerous men. It is men like you who brought the Nazis to power, and men like you who must be stopped from holding future office. I stand behind everything I have said here in front of God and man, and will continue to beat this drum until you are gone. I am again imploring the city to live up to its name, given to it after the Honorable Joseph Orono,
Brad?
Indian chief peacemaker from Orono, Maine, and set an example for generations to come.
Come on, Brad.
Denounce this hate,
Sit
Brad,
down,
before it is too late.
Sit down.
Is there anybody else for public comment?
On the clown, can you see that? Can you see that clown? He sits right there. You
Brad,
guys see
sit
that?
down. You're embarrassing yourself.
I'm the clown.
You're embarrassing yourself. Sit
Right?
down.
Weren't those the words last week?
Sit down.
Yeah, we'll see.
And last call for public comment.
Sue me. Sue me.
And that brings us to mayor council report.
Funny man.
Victoria.
You know, the only thing I guess I have to update everybody on is we had our tree lighting event last weekend. It was really cold, like really cold. And I was shocked to see how many people still came out with how cold it was. People, I think Adam, you had shared when you were, even when you were leaving, which meant you left before it was over. We can talk about that later. People actually drove up with their littles and sat in their car and watched the fireworks because it was that cold. We ran out of hot chocolate because it was that cold. So I think that was a good sign that that many people came out. I did get a lot of residents that came up to me even though I was all bundled up, and they actually were super thankful for the community event because I think they realized, and you know, many don't, that's the only Orono community event we have, right?
It didn't exist 4 years ago.
No. Corn Days is St. George, like, right? So lots of good feedback from the residents that were there. Again, so many volunteers of their time to serve food and do setup, and then also donations from North Malo, the Lions, the Long Lake Fire Department, Culver's, Lunds. I'm sure I'm forgetting some, but there was so many amazing donors, so it was a great event, so thanks to staff too, because I know you guys spent a lot of time setting everything up, so they're gone.
They did awesome.
Yeah, that's all I
Yeah,
have.
no, they did a great job.
Matt?
Hard to give it up a little, Denny.
Old habits die hard.
Yeah, two things, Aaron, thanks for your service. I mean, that's, 12 years, you did a mediocre job tonight, not a great way to end it. It's a tough job, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And I was hoping to see you in it someday. Maybe you'll be back. But thank you for your service. It's, this is a tough job. I mean, certainly you don't do it for the fame and glory. You don't do it for the money. And it's a lot of public service, and you did it for a long time. And so, thank you for doing it. I'll miss you. Didn't know Aaron until this process, so I
got to know you in the audience, and you saw some other issues going on.
So thanks. Just, my heart goes out to the Crawl family and growing up with Jeff. And, it's just a good reminder for us, I guess, all. And she's a young woman and went too soon. And I have, Jeff has been a big part of the Long Lake Fire, for a long time. And he's a bigger than life, kind of guy. And so this is hit in him and his family heart. So my thoughts and prayers are with him. On a city business piece, Victoria and I did resume our negotiations with Long Lake representatives for the fire discussion. I would like to tell you we achieved something there, but we are in a holding pattern with respect to the city of Long Lake's decision. And so we have an offer. We had a request for when they respond to that offer. They haven't. They haven't given us any indication when they are going to have an answer. But what we did ask them is to make a decision. And, our hope is that they join us and we keep the department together. That's been our goal, and Victoria and I reiterated that to their representatives. We hope that, but at the same time, if they decide they're better off on their own and not having Orono as their partner, we respect that decision too. We just like them to make it, because the concern that Victoria and I have had and we've mentioned it to them is we get farther and farther down this road, and the offer that we provided them isn't obtainable anymore because we've spent a lot of money and time, and if they make a decision, we can move forward with it. So that was the extent of our conversation, is just reminding them that we're waiting on them to tell us what their decision is, if they want to accept our offer. So we're waiting on that, but we agreed to keep our communication lines open, and we're gonna meet with them again. So at some point that we're gonna schedule the next week or two.
Very good. Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah.
I'm almost apprehensive about thanking people, because I'll forget, I'm sure, some names. But just the prior councils that I sat with, and Lily and Cynthia and Doug and Dave and then Christy, and I've sat on a lot of councils and seen a lot of the turning over of the councils. And thank you, Matt and Denny and Victoria and Richard, and it's
No particular order.
In no particular order, but I've learned a tremendous deal, and little bits and pieces from everyone. And something that Denny something Denny taught me was, might not have all the good ideas, or might not even have an idea, but a great idea when you hear it. And I've taken away something, just little bits and pieces from everybody. So I thank everybody for that, and the city staff for helping and coaching, And as things have gone along the way, and the city staff that aren't here anymore, and the past administrators, and Jessica, and there was a couple between there, and temporary guy, or, you know, and now Adam, and it's been great. So, like I said, I'm sure I'm missing a whole lot of people, but thank you, citizens of Orono, and my family and friends, and it was cool that my family could come out here tonight. I think my daughter's been the only one in 12 years that ever set foot in here, but I got my brother to show up, and he left at about 6:05. So anyway, got my lovely Annette and her girls out there, and my daughter's probably sitting in the car, but listening to music. So anyway, but and for the public for coming, and there's times it gets contentious, but that's what it's all about. I mean, really, and it's feet being held to the fire, and decisions get made, and something I've learned along the way, and I like being a student of history and trying to see, okay, how did Orono get here from the past 100 years or so, and more. And today's solutions do become tomorrow's problems. So as we've discovered, just with weird land use issues, or God knows what, you name it, Orono's been there. Orono's gonna be fine. We've got a great police department, and thank you, and pass along my appreciation to your fellow officers and the firefighters that have serviced Orono. Ironically enough, it used to be a lot of Wayzata, not so much Long Lake, that serviced a big portion of Orono. But I won't go down that path of history, because, you know, people forget that. But anyway, and then I think I saw the newly elected council member. She was in here at one point, and so good. There she is. Good luck to her, and it's just a cool thing, and the residents have been awesome, and we'll see you around. We'll see you at the Narrows. But or on the Long Lake side, probably the Rooster or San Pancho. So anyway, I won't take up any more of your time, but my thanks go out to everybody, and he's been a great friend, and we've sat next to each other for a lot of years, and seen a lot of things, and yeah, I could just go on and on. So I'm just going to cut myself if I forgot anybody. You know that you're in my heart. So with that, the mayor.
Okay, well, I'll come back to that, but I do want to touch on the tree lighting. Was really good, and we had great, the Lions did great serving. We sold out of hot chocolate, we sold out of cookies, we sold out of just about everything. And everybody dressed appropriately for the most part, but we could go inside. There was a fireplace inside. There was like 5 or 6 fire pits outside. We had carolers, we had Santa. It was pretty special. And I know when the fireworks were going off, all we could hear is kids behind us yelling and screaming how much fun it was. So they're going to remember that for the rest of their life. This is our only meeting in December, so I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year and safe travels. The kids are off of school at the end of this week, at least in Orono. You know, my kids, this is their last week before they're off. Remember what the Boy Scouts say, ice is never safe. And the ice is forming on the lake. I'm seeing ice houses out there already. I'm seeing people walk across the lake. I'm seeing snowmobiles already on the lake. So just be careful, be watchful, because it's kind of crazy. Like Matt, I'm a real estate broker. I'm in the commercial real estate world, not the residential real estate world. So I'm doing some continuing ed recently, and some interesting stuff just to give you a perspective on kind of what's going on around in some of our other communities. Like up in Maple Grove, they've had large developments they've had over the last few years that are strictly rental developments. They're doing big, huge rental of single-family homes, where they'll come in and build 50 houses and they're all rentals. They'll come in and do townhomes, and 50 to 100 of those, and they're all rentals. And obviously rentals, maybe they're needed, but they obviously change your community, renting versus people owning properties. Maple Grove now, in the meantime, has put a moratorium on any more rental housing, because they've built so much that it's starting to impact their areas, and kind of what's going on from police and fire and just their neighborhoods in general, to rethink Do they need more staff to manage this and how it's impacting them? We've been the firewall for change in Orono. A long time ago, everybody said, God, Denny's a developer, he's gonna develop all these marinas and homes and build all these things. I'm not a developer. I'm a real estate investor in the commercial real estate end. I just know a lot about real estate. But our big thing was, people wanted, when we went out knocking on doors for months and months and hit thousands of them, the big thing was people wanted to keep Orono the way Orono was. They wanted their 1 acre zoning to stay 1 acre zoning. They wanted their 2 acre zoning to stay 2 acre zoning. They didn't want big, huge apartment complexes with new height coming and all that kind of stuff. And we have told developers on and off through the years that if they follow the rules that are in place for the land they're developing, they're good. But they always would come in here time after I'd meet with them and talk about it, and they'd ask for something different, and we tell them no, and they get all mad. But now, I think it's been going on for so long, we've been up here for so many years, and the developers kind of know the deal that there's no point in coming here and asking for changes. They either follow the rules that we've got, or there's no point in coming here because they're just going to be denied. And that just takes a lot of time and money out of theirs, takes a lot of our staff time, and that kind of stuff. And that's why we also started doing sketch plans years ago, because when I was first on the council, we had people coming through all the way through Planning Commission, all the way to the council with developments that are looking for us to approve them. They spent time and lots of money, and we said, who told you that we would ever say okay to this? And they probably spent $100,000 with all the building plans and everything that they do, and we said, there's probably a better way to go do this. Let's have them come here first, do a sketch plan to see if it, just on a drawing basis, a real casual drawing, does this make sense? And that's helped a lot of people because they recognize they don't want to spend their time and money if it isn't going to work. We just rather, they would tell us too, we'd rather you tell us no right now than go through the process and then have to spend the money and be told no. And so we all agreed with that. So we've kind of been that barrier, but there's a lot of stuff going on around us that is inching closer towards us. It's right in a long way. 2 new developments that are higher than the heights that we would do and denser than the densities we would do. And the only density we've had to do in the last few years is some of the stuff right along Highway 12 you've seen, that the Met Council has forced us into creating 180 units as an example, that we had to come up with our comprehensive plan every 10 years. And the only place we could find to do that would make any sense was along the Highway 12 corridor. So we ended up rezoning some of these properties that were just grass and zoned for office buildings. And I don't see anybody rushing to build office buildings here anytime soon. And we were able to rezone those to residential, but we kept our height standards and accomplished all that. And so what you see is all fits into the community, but we're able to achieve that without having to go into anybody's neighborhoods and put in more density. What scares me is what's going to come up in the next round of 10 when they say, okay, you need to find another 200 units, and we're going to go, I don't know where to do that. So that's the problem with the Met Council. Was an unelected body that we have to deal with. Because White Bear Lake sued the Met Council years ago, and they spent probably 10 years in litigation with them, and it came back and the Supreme Court of Minnesota said, no, you have to follow what the Met Council does, period. So now they're developing up in White Bear Lake, because so we know that's not a battle we could win, but we got to be as I don't know what would be the good word. We got to be as magical as we can to figure out how to make all that stuff work and still keep our Orono way of life the way we like it. So with that, also Jeff Kroll, who passed away, his wife who passed away suddenly, he also has a meal page, and if anybody's interested, would like to make a meal for him and his kids, I'd be glad to, if you text me or email me or do something, I'd be glad to send you that page if you'd like to make a meal. I know I'm going to be there Wednesday with our chicken pot pies that my wife makes that are just unbelievable for the family. He's also got a GoFundMe page for trying to pay for the expenses and dealing with all the stuff that obviously came out of the blue that was not expected. So I could send that too if anybody's interested, either in here or in the audience. And you could email probably Adam or any of our email addresses are on the city website as well. So with that, I've got a little proclamation I'd like to read here. It's a little lengthy, but bear with me.
He's worth it.
It's worth it. This is a resolution of appreciation, and we already approved this, so we don't have to make any more motions anymore on this. It's a resolution of appreciation to Mr. Aaron Hale Printup for distinguished service as a member of the Orono City Council and a good friend. And that's no more important. Whereas Aaron Printup has served this community with distinction during his 12 years as a member of the City Council, and whereas his years of service have been marked by exemplary dedication to the best interests of the community, and whereas he has earned the admiration and high regard of those with whom he has worked, and whereas his lifelong support and participation in community events and activities has facilitated his accessibility to residents of the community, whereas his commitment to the preservation of Orono's character has been reflected in his decision-making, whereas the performance of his duties and responsibilities as a member of the City Council has been characterized by excellent and constructive contributions to the community in efforts such as the Highway 12 Safety Coalition Committee, Housing Redevelopment Authority, Long Lake Fire Advisory Commission, Human Resources Committee, and as acting mayor like he was tonight, to name but a few. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Orono does hereby express its sincere appreciation and thanks to Aaron Hale Printup for his distinguished service to the community, and does also highly commend him for the manner in which he has carried out his duties and responsibilities. Be it further resolved that the City Council extends to him their best wishes for continued success in his future endeavors. Adopted by the City Council of Orono, Minnesota, at a regular meeting held this 12th day of December, 2022. Congratulations. This is the official time when he actually loses his name tag. Because this is his name tag, and we're going to put it right in here. Because this is 12 in gratitude and sincere appreciation for your 12 years of dedicated service as a member of the Orono City Council, 2011 to 2022. All right, very much.
Thank you very much. Like I said, I'm sure I forgot some people's names. And Denny touched on some of the big projects that we did and resolutions against the Met Council and supporting our non-assessing of residents and reaffirming that and keeping child predators out of the city and with markers of where they can't go, because we don't want strangers like that around here, bad people, and
Raising the blue line flag.
Raising the blue line flag again, supporting our police officers, and I'll still continue on with some civic duties. I'm in corrections and law enforcement, so I'll carry on with that. And like I said, I just there was a lady here tonight that spoke, and she came up here and she said, "Oh, is your aunt Patty?" I said, "Oh wow," so it's just cool having those ties in the city that people are connected around here. So please don't speak ill will about one another, because it will get around. No, I'm just kidding. Talk about whatever you want. So thank you again. It's been fun. It's been real.
And as acting there, how would you like to end the meeting?
And do I hear a motion for adjournment? Do I hear a second? All in favor?
Aye.
That was one of our longer ones. Almost done.
Drive carefully.
Just wanted to finish out the meeting. Sorry.
Going by what you have to It's just that it wasn't flowing, it's not,